In the 1950s, the Republic of Zernitra humiliated its rival, the United Kingdom of Arnak, in the space race, staying ahead by initiating the first artificial satellite into space, launching a probe into the moon's orbit, and putting a living dog in space. Now both nations are determined to put the first human into space. At the Military Space Research Territory in northern Zernitra, a man named Lev has been called on to the office of the chief designer, Slava. Lev is being informed that despite working hard to be a cosmonaut, he is being demoted to only being a reserve with little chance of being selected for space travel. Regardless, in anticipation of the future live broadcast of the first human in space, he is assigned to a special mission. He is brought to the animal experimental lab in a confinement cell, where they are keeping a girl vampire codenamed N4. Lev is informed that N4 will be a secret test subject for spaceflight before the manned mission. Lev looks at the girl, and his first reaction is to blush. The task is to monitor N4's training while keeping her identity secret from civilians. To Lev's inconvenience, he will temporarily live in the adjacent cell right beside N4. The cheerful girl, Anya, is the vampire's health manager and will accompany Lev on the task. N4 needs to eat a meal at the cafeteria, so Lev prepares to take her there. Despite being discouraged by Anya, Lev calls N4 by her real name, Irina. At the cafeteria, full of cosmonaut candidates, Lev introduces Irina. She is met with tension due to being a vampire. In turn, Irina tells the person who insulted her that she hates humans. All the humans leave the cafeteria quickly, leaving only Irina and Lev behind. The dorm matron, Natalia, shows Irina kindness and gives her a worthy meal. Regardless of myth, vampires eat the same food as humans. Lev keeps observing Irina out of curiosity about how vampires eat. On their sidecar ride on their way to the animal lab, they stop over at the grave of the first dog in space, Melly. 3 years ago, the nation demanded the first animal spaceflight. Despite an incomplete ship designed not to return, the project got the green light. Despite Melly staying alive for a few minutes in space, the dog died due to extreme heat. Since then, it has become an unwritten rule to treat subjects as only objects. Irina compares herself to Melly and pays her respects in front of the grave. Lev contemplates the fact that Irina is not just a test subject. In the confinement cell, Lev feels too cold to sleep. He comes into Irina's cell, thinking she might need blankets. The evasive Irina says that due to being a vampire, she can withstand cold temperatures and wants Lev to leave right away. Before leaving, Lev makes his visit an opportunity to apologize to her for initially treating her as a test subject, not much better than the people in the cafeteria. Irina peeks out of her coffin to see that Lev left a blanket on her table. She contemplates that humans should not be trusted, despite Lev and Anya being seemingly nice people. Lev greets Irina at her cell to get ready for the day's training. He informs Irina that she can leave her gem necklace in the cell. She agrees to leave it but warns Lev not to look at it so as not to defile it. On the athletic field, Lev and Irina do running exercises. Despite Lev's insistence that it's not a race, Irina runs at top speed, forcing Lev to do the same. By the finish line, Anya reports that Irina can keep up with the top cosmonaut candidates. Regardless, Irina hates that she lost to a human like Lev. At the clinic, Anya is excited to get a full-body examination on Irina. Irina insists on getting Lev out of the room despite his duty to monitor her. Hearing the examination going on, Lev put her ear to the wall to best listen. This leaves an embarrassing situation where someone sees Lev listening in. At the cafeteria, Irina and Lev eat rations made for space travel. Lev cannot stand it, but Irina can eat it with no problem. This leads to a discussion revealing that vampires have no sense of taste, only smells, textures, and temperature perception. Irina reveals that drinking blood is considered barbaric in their culture. She only drank goat blood once on her 10th birthday for a traditional ritual. At that moment, she felt warm and filled with strength. The myth that vampires drink human blood is due to humans blaming vampires for a plague. Vampires find milk more appealing and consider it a good substitute for blood. After the cafeteria, Irina needs to be tested in a hot room, a room used to replicate hot environments. Supervising the training is Vice Director Sagalech. He is so superstitious and intolerant that he treats Irina terribly while wearing a garlic necklace and cross. Lev will experience the hot room first. Before he does, the Vice Director insists that Irina wear restraints. Irina puts it on just to entertain the fool. Before Irina starts her turn in the hot room, Lev tells her that if she wants to get out of the intense heat, she only needs to form a cross with her fingers. While in the hot room, Irina is visibly suffering from the heat but refuses to do the cross sign until the end of the session. Next is centrifuge training, where Lev and Irina need to ride a machine that swirls them around like a theme park ride. On Irina's turn, the Vice Director orders the training scientist, Franz, to tie Irina's belt tightly. The vice director turns the machine at the highest possible speed to torture Irina. Lev is so frustrated by the treatment, but he cannot do anything to stop it. Once the machine stops, Irina starts bleeding due to the tight belt restraint. Out of concern, Anya rushes for the first aid kit. While Irina is doing her swimming training, Lev contemplates the fact that Irina never complained about all the experiments. Lev tells her that she needs to master parachute landing since it will be the way for her to return to Earth after spaceflight. At the parachute training facility, Lev sees how scared Irina is of heights, despite her attempts to hide them. Not wanting to force Irina through the exercise, they end it quickly. On their way home, they first stop at a vending machine. Lev introduces Irina to soda water. While Irina initially does not like the feel of it on her tongue, she finds it as invigorating as Lev says. Lev also recommends she try lemon seltzer. Irina is curious about it, but is too stubborn to ask for one. Back at the animal facility, Irina is showering and imagines herself falling. She is so scared of the possibility that she gets into a fetal position. In her cell, she finds that Lev has left lemon seltzer on her coffin. She pulls herself away from it, but eventually does, loving the sensation. Lev is revealed to be visible by the door windows and sees Irina enjoying the drink. Irina is defensive in saying she did not like it, making Lev smile. Chief designer Slava calls the animal facility to check on how Lev is coming along with the project. He tells the person on the line that he picked Lev for the project since he only sees species differences as trivial. Slava also believes they might have enemies from within. Meanwhile, in an undisclosed location, someone is burning a picture of Irina. Irina is back at the parachute training facility and is still too scared of heights to make a successful jump at the cable exercise. Lev contemplates that her performance rivals that of her rivals' top candidates, except for parachute training. At Zernitra Union's capital, Sangrad, a secret cabinet meeting is being held to discuss Irina's test flight. Slava and others report that their tests with Irina are coming along smoothly, so Supreme Leader Fyodor is satisfied with what he's hearing. One of the higher-ups suggests disposing of Irina once she is no longer needed. Supreme Leader Fyodor wants to get back to that issue at a later time. The higher-up is frustrated by the Supreme Leader's reply. While Lev is off duty, he comes across the cosmonaut candidate. He tells them about all the progress Irina has made and how she can keep up with other candidates. One of the best candidates, Rosa, insists that Irina is not their equal and is only a test subject. One insensitive person tells Lev that they are lucky he is no longer a cosmonaut candidate since it gives the others a fighting chance. The other top candidate, Michael, talks privately with Lev, saying that the others are just jealous of Irina since she will go to space before any of them. Irina just finished her medical examination, and Anya asks if she can call her Irinian, while Irina calls her by her first name, Anya. Irina reluctantly agrees and asks why she is not afraid of her. Anya answers that the best way to beat fear is to understand something. Anya then goes on to be personal with Irina by asking if she really likes soda water and lemon seltzer. This makes Irina uncomfortable. Elsewhere at a jazz bar, Lev is looking at a psychiatry book to better know how to handle Irina's fear of flight. He gets the idea of letting Irina feel what flying is like. He brings Irina to the military airfield, where he starts a plane with a scared Irina in it. By the time they are above the clouds, Lev encourages Irina to open her eyes. Instead of being afraid, Irina looks at the moon with wonder. She imagines herself being free to fly through the cosmos. On the way down, Irina thanks Lev, saying she is no longer afraid. After they get off the plane, the two see rushing military trucks carrying bottles of blood for emergency. The soldiers inform them that there was an accident at the Albina base and engineers got hurt. Despite Zernitra announcing that Albanar experienced an airplane accident, secretly, a missile malfunctioned during a test launch, killing over 500 people. The Zernitra higher-ups believe the accident was a carefully constructed scheme. Meanwhile, Irina is doing parachute training and is doing better than before. While on a break, Lev and Irina drink soda water. They talk about the Albanar incident, and Lev thinks that the nation might be secretly developing weapons there. He tells the tale of how, when he was in elementary school, his teacher told him that planes were for soaring, not weapons. The next day, she was arrested simply for telling the truth. Lev hopes that his teacher is still alive. With only 1 month until launch, Lev takes Irina skydiving. They jump off a helicopter together, with Lev calming and advising Irina through the drop. Lev pulls the parachute out, and they land safely. Despite being overwhelmed by the experience, Irina insists on doing it again. Later, Irina goes through the hot room again. Lev wonders why Irina pushes herself so hard. While in the hot room, Irina recalls being taken by soldiers from her homeland and then being experimented on. She tells herself she will never lose and goes through the hot room with determination. At the design bureau, Slava is hurrying to fortify the craft Irina will be taking so it will be ready for the test flight. He is feeling pain in his chest, but is determined to finish the project. At the training center, Lev informs Irina that she needs to master parachuting by herself in 3 weeks. Irina then gets to try out the spacesuit designed for her. It is so hot that by the time she exits the suit, she is sweaty and tired. She gets embarrassed knowing Lev is looking at her while her clothes are see-through. While Lev is outside the halls, Rosa approaches him to tell him more about her hatred of vampires and how Irina will be disposed of after her flight. Irina overhears her and they get into verbal sparring. Despite Lev saying she should not mind Rosa, Irina's face looks hurt. While Lev and Irina eat, Irina reveals she was never forced into the space program. She signed up herself. However, still hesitant about opening up to Lev, she doesn't reveal why. In Irina's confinement cell, Lev informs her that she will have solitude training in the anechoic altitude chamber. In it, Irina will stuck for days with no sounds and with sensors attached to her. Before she goes through with it, Lev advises her to have some fun. He suggests a jazz bar, and Irina reveals she is only 17 and cannot drink. Despite being shy to admit it, she still wants to go. At the jazz bar, Irina does not know what a phonograph is and is surprised to hear music. She comments that she likes the song she is hearing. While Lev orders wine, Irina orders soda water, finally admitting that she likes it. Lev watches her drink and blushes. He then let her try a sip of red wine, but her tongue was too sensitive for it. With just a little liquor, Irina is already drunk and more open to talking. She asks Lev why he always wanted to go to space. Lev answers that he has always wanted to go to the moon since he was 5 years old. Back then, he saw an airplane in front of a full moon, and it seemed to him like the plane could go there. Lev expresses the opinion that countries' petty wars should not be taken into space. The dorm matron, Natalia, appears behind Lev. She advises him not to talk about his opinions on the nation so openly since he might get arrested. After teasing Lev and Irina that they look like they are enjoying each other's company, she leaves. Lev and Irina then go on their way to the frozen Belka Lake. There, Lev lets Irina ice skate. He is enamored of seeing Irina skate happy and free under the moonlight. After skating, they talk on a bench. Lev shares that he was demoted to being only a reserve for the first manned space mission due to punching a superior officer who was blaming someone else for his own mistake. The conversation turns to Irina, who reveals that humans burned her parents and other villagers with fire when she was still a child. Irina knows that after her flight, she will be disposed of by humans. She also reveals that her gem necklace is a moonstone passed down by her people through generations. One day, she wants to take the gem to the moon with her. To Irina, every experiment humans did on her was all worth it if she could go to space. If she can go to the moon before humans can defile it, then she will be okay with being disposed of after. Irina asks Lev to stick with her until it happens. Lev promises that he will. The next day, Irina is frustrated that she can't remember anything that happened yesterday. She goes into the anechoic altitude chamber, ready to be isolated for days. Lev catches up with the other cosmonaut candidates and tells them that it has been 3 days since Irina went into the anechoic altitude chamber. He wonders what Irina is thinking in there. Due to sensory deprivation, Irina is having dreams of floating in space. Meanwhile, the cosmonaut candidates, including Lev as a reserve, are visited by the Supreme Leader's aide, Ludmila. She has a message directly from the Supreme Leader saying that after rigorous elimination, only 6 will become official cosmonauts. Ludmila also reports that they will be launching N4 before the United Kingdom of Arnak launches their chimpanzee flight. Just like Irina, the candidates go through a series of grueling tests. While in the parachute exercise, one candidate could not control his spin as he dropped and got injured upon landing. The injured man is out of the running, leaving room for Lev as a possible candidate again. Despite it, Lev is not glad at the man's misfortune. As the days in the chamber go by, Irina remembers her people being massacred by human soldiers, including her parents. Irina is in a cold sweat, conscious that she might be killed after her use is done. Once Irina's time in the chamber is done, Lev enters to tell her she has made it through. Irina is so grateful to see Lev that she grabs tightly onto his arm. As Irina drinks lemon seltzer, Lev stares at her, unable to get the thought of Irina grabbing him tightly off his head. With just a few minutes of rest, Irina needs to get back to training. Lev and Irina need to skydive again, but this time, Irina will not be connected to Lev by one parachute. While they drop from the sky, they make an effort to grab each other. Then they let go and pulled out their separate parachutes. On the ground, Irina is happy that she successfully made a landing. Lev runs to her to celebrate with a hug, but Irina is too embarrassed to do it and stops him. Lev says they need to try again, this time with a spinning move since it would be serious if Irina spun out of control and became unconscious in the air on the day of the flight. While Lev's training may seem strict, Irina recognizes that he just wants her to survive the trip. While Irina reminds Lev that it was humans that killed her people, she also says he is the only human she doesn't despise. This makes Lev smile. Suddenly, the two see a meteorite-like object in the sky. They see that it is an experimental spacecraft with a dog on it. Irina sees the dog on the ground, and she hyperventilates as she remembers all the human atrocities done to her. The higher-ups talk about what went wrong with the experimental flight. Slava says that since there were malfunctions, they needed to activate a bomb placed in the craft upon re-entry. One general command is that there must be an explosive placed in Irina's craft too when the time comes, on the occasion that her craft might land in another country. Lieutenant General Victor picked up Irina and Lev from the crash. Victor sees that Irina is in shock and wonders if she will be alright by the time of the flight, which Lev assures her she will be. Irina was so shocked by the body of the dead dog that she had a nightmare of being hit by a crashing space shuttle and being stared at by an army of silent dead dogs. She wakes up from the nightmare with a scream, waking the concerned Lev up in his cell. The next day, Irina has bags under her eyes. During the running exercise, she gets tired easily. While she eats, she hurries to the bathroom to barf. After the hot room training, Irina looks defeated. Lev and the scientists wonder if she will be okay for flight, but Irina insists that she is fine. By the time Irina can no longer stand, she cannot hide within her pride any longer and goes to the doctor. She rests at the clinic, admitting that she has been having bad dreams since she saw the crashed spacecraft. In the next few days, Irina cannot eat properly. Lacking knowledge of vampire biology, the doctor eventually gives up trying to treat her. While Lev is walking with Anya, he realizes Irina needs to drink blood. Anya and Lev bring a bottle of blood to her, but she doesn't want to drink it, especially because she doesn't know where it came from. Lev then realizes he can give his own blood to her. Lev is so adamant about fulfilling Irina's dream of going to space that he insists on it. Treating it like an intimate matter, Irina blushes at the thought. Lev puts out his arm, and Irina bites on it. While Irina bites, they both feel an intimate connection. After the bite, Irina instantly felt stronger. She asks Lev if he is scared to go to space, knowing he might be on board a missile that might explode at any moment. Lev answers that he is, but since his dream is to go to space, he will risk it. After Lev leaves, Irina whispers a thank you to him. Lev heard from Lieutenant General Victor that there would be a bomb placed at Irina's craft. While he is frustrated by the decision, the training scientist Franz tells him to let it be, afraid for his friend if he opposes it. During the centrifugal training, the machine is as fast as ever while Irina rides it. Franz realizes that the machine is getting faster and faster and will not stop. Instead of listening to the vice director's advice not to interfere with the machine, Lev destroys the electrical panel, stopping the machine. The vice director blames the malfunction on Irina. Irina stares intensely at him for it, leading the vice director to kick her. He keeps abusing Irina, and Lev stands up to him. Lev grabs his garlic necklace and throws it on the floor. The vice director is so scared that he trips while walking backward. Lev demands an apology from him. However, Lev calms down after Irina tells him to. Due to Lev's actions, the vice director orders his court-martial. Despite Irina's protest that it is her fault, Lev is seized by the guards. He is put in solitary confinement until further notice. The day that Irina will go to space has finally arrived. To protect their secret space mission from the UK intercepting their transmission, Irina will read off a script of coded messages. Through radio communication, Irina will be called Lycoris and will read off food recipes to indicate her status in outer space. Particularly if she has reached space with no signs of problems, she will read a borscht recipe. Slava also informs Irina that there is a bomb in her rocket in case her craft goes hurling to another country. Before Irina enters her ship, Anya gives her the moonstone. In solitary confinement, Lev wonders if Irina is about to go into space. To his surprise, the dorm matron Antelia enters his cell, but with military authority and accompanied by security. At the space station, a scientist sees the stone and tells Irina she is not permitted to bring it into space. At that moment, Lev arrives at the space station. He explains that Natalia informed him that, after an investigation, Franz was confirmed to be the one who sabotaged the centrifugal training machine to stop Irina's flight. Due to Franz's actions, Lev became off the hook, while Franz was stripped off the records. In the present, Irina leaves the moonstone to Lev. She asks that when Lev goes to the moon, he take it with him. He rejects her request, saying she will do it someday instead. Irina enters her craft, promising herself she will return. Much to everyone's excitement, the rocket successfully launched. However, communication gets cut off after, while everyone in the communication tower is struggling to get in touch with Irina. Lev grips her moonstone tight. Finally, Irina's voice is heard, and she says borscht to the relief of everyone. In Earth's orbit, Irina is glad she has reached space and thinks about Lev. She gave the recipe for lemon seltzer as a coded message to Lev, making Lev smile. Irina then looks at her view and sees the moon. She cries, believing that it might be impossible for her to ever go there. After days in space, the ship malfunctions and starts falling to Earth. Despite it being unauthorized for Lev to communicate through radio, he calls out Irina's name. The craft landed miles off course, and Lev volunteered to be part of the search team. They arrive at a snowy mountain plain. Lev sees the craft, but Irina is not in it. Lev is so determined to find Irina that he injures his leg by falling off his tricycle. He remembers all the time he spent together with Irina, and determines she is not just an object, but an ordinary girl. Thankfully, Lev finds Irina alive. The two use the parachute as shelter while they wait for the search party to come for them. Lev embraces Irina, teary-eyed, knowing that she is safe. Lev contemplates that, despite the fact that Irina is never going to be known in history, she is still the world's first cosmonaut. At the Albanar staff dormitory, Irina's successful trip to space is celebrated. Despite the celebration, Irina is sad that she cannot go near Lev since he is busy talking to officers in the party. As Lev takes a bus ride in the town of Albanar, he sees that there are no civilians celebrating for Irina, as if it is just an ordinary day. At a private meeting, Slava informs Lev and Irina that Project Nosferatu has been a success. In addition, due to Lev's good work, he is promoted as a cosmonaut candidate again. This makes Irina privately smile. The caveat is that Lev will no longer be the one supervising Irina, much to the two's apparent distress about it. After the meeting, the two come across the other cosmonaut candidates, leading to a verbal fight between Rosa and Irina. Mikhail stops the fighting, saying that Irina deserves to be recognized for her achievement. At the cell, Irina demands that Lev beat all the candidates and be the one to go to space. As Lev enters the bus, he asks Anya to take care of Irina for him. Meanwhile, following the success of the Nosferatu project, the higher-ups have postponed Irina's disposal. Many other higher-ups do not like the decision that some want an accident to happen to Irina. At Irina's cell, Anya proposes that she and Irina go out to town together for New Year's Eve. For that purpose, Anya gives Irina a native dress from her homeland of Lilito. In their walk, the two bond over being both Lilito natives. A little girl dressed in a Zernitra Snow Maiden character costume approaches the two, giving away candy. Irina wonders what the little girl's reaction would be if she knew she was a vampire. Anya thinks it would be more shocking for the girl to know Irina went to space. This makes Irina wonder what her people would think if they knew she got along well with humans. The conversations give Anya the idea of celebrating the New Year Lilito style. They go to the frozen Belka Lake with pine cones in their hands. They throw the pine cones and make a wish. Anya says she wishes to get along even better with Irina. Irina says her wish is to long live Zernitra. Anya is frustrated, knowing Irina just doesn't want to tell her her wish. They then skate together and fall together. This only makes them laugh, and they both look up at the sky. Meanwhile, Lev is busy training with the other cosmonaut candidates. Victor monitors the candidates' training and sees that Lev steps up to stop a fight between Rosa and another candidate. After a day of training, Lev is thinking about Irina as he looks at the bite mark on her arm. He remembers when they were in the snow together after Irina landed from her trip to space. They were sitting close, side by side. Irina was about to confess something to Lev, but the search party shouted for them, stopping her. Meanwhile, Irina is being examined by doctors, after which she returns to her cell and finds fresh pastries and milk on her table. She smiles, knowing Lev has visited her. Lev brings her flowers and says it for her as the first cosmonaut. However, Anya smiles, knowing it is more intimate than that. After they all eat the pastry, Irina and Lev get to talk. Irina says it is the first time someone has celebrated for her since her parents died. While Lev thinks billions should know about Irina's accomplishment, Irina asks about Lev's training, and Lev says it is going well. Zernitra's competition in the space race, the United Kingdom of Arnak, has successfully sent a chimpanzee into space and landed safely. The higher-ups in Zernitra are starting to worry about the race to put a man into space. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Jen Victor has picked the top 3 candidates to go to space: Mikhail, Rosa, and finally, Lev. Lev visits Irina to tell her about the good news. Irina thinks it is nothing to be excited about since he was not picked in the first place. Anya reveals to Lev that despite Irina playing it cool, she could not wait to know if he got picked in the top 3. Anya even knows that Irina prayed for Lev to reach space when they threw the pine cones together for the new year. Irina gets embarrassed and denies it. She then slips near a tree, making snow fall on her. This makes Anya and Lev laugh at her. Irina changes the subject and tells Lev he needs to beat the others and go to space. Lev's training with the other candidates has become more intense. Irina asks about Lev's chances, and Anya teases her about him. This upsets Irina because she goes outside in the snow. She asks Anya if she still has value, worrying if the nation will keep her alive. Anya hugs her, saying everything will be okay. Meanwhile, Natalia is looking at them from a distance. At parachute training, Rosa gets temporarily unconscious mid-drop. Once awake, she tries to pull her parachute, but it is not working. Lev goes near her and pulls her chute, successfully saving her. This makes Lev pull late, giving him a bad landing. Going to the doctor, he is informed that he has no serious injuries. Lieutenant Gen Victor visits Lev at the clinic to tell him how proud he is of him for saving a comrade. Lev visits Rosa to see if she is okay. Lev reveals that he saved her since he considers her a friend. They get to talking by the bench, and Rosa knows she is out of the running due to failing at the parachute training. Rosa tells Lev her story as a woman struggling in the Air Force. She became competitive, knowing her only option was to be the best. Rosa admits that Lev is the better candidate and apologizes to him for her past behavior. In extension, she also wants to apologize for her treatment of Irina. She reveals her respect for Irina, saying she is an amazing cosmonaut. Irina and Anya happen to be passing by, making Irina jealous that Lev and Rosa are enjoying a talk. Anya and Irina go to town, and they almost get hit by a car. The driver runs away and is chased by Natalia. The secret police have captured the assailant and brought him to an underground base. The assailant begs to be let go, justifying that his action was for the motherland. Natalia does not agree with the assailant's action and has him disposed of. Lev visits Irina, but since he hasn't visited for a month and heard he saved Rosa, she is mad at him. Irina tells Lev that she will soon be leaving the city and transferring to Sangrad, where she will work for the design bureau. Lev is relieved because it means she will not be disposed of. Since Irina needs to leave in 2 days, Anya proposes a farewell party for her. Anya says she cannot make it, tricking the two into having a date together. The next day, Lev meets up with the blushing Irina. Irina and Lev were supposed to go to the jazz bar, but they see that it is closed. They go to the movie theater and decide to see The Heavenly Voyage, a film about going to the moon. Throughout the film's runtime, Irina is so engrossed with whatever's happening that she can't control her excited emotions. By the film's end, when the heroes return to Earth safely, she disturbed the audience by standing up and clapping. After the film, they decide to have a picnic at Belka Lake. Lev sees that Irina made kolodets for him to eat. Lev tastes it, and Irina is glad that she made it perfectly despite having no taste buds. Irina teases that since Lev ate, it means he will go to space. They sit together looking at the northern lights. Irina says she also saw the northern lights when she was in space and thought they were beautiful. Lev looks at Irina, and she contemplates wanting her to suck his blood again, but this time by the neck. As if they were kissing, Irina slowly put her mouth on Lev's neck. Suddenly, Irina hears the bus coming, so she stops. Not wanting Lev to be seen with her, she tries to leave. Lev grabs her and embraces her, saying she has done nothing wrong. Irina leaves, saying they will meet each other again after Lev returns from space. The top cosmonaut candidates head for a film shoot at the Founders Mausoleum in Sangrad. The intent is to preserve the historic moment before the spaceflight. The only candidates being filmed are Mikhail and Lev, leaving no one to wonder if Rosa is out of the race. The Supreme Leader's aide, Ludmila, asks the two candidates what kind of person the first human in space should be like. Mikhail answers that it is someone worthy of being called a hero. To Lev, it is someone who yearns to be in space and is willing to die for it. Ludmila thinks he should be a revolutionary hero and leaves. Her answer is so generic that Mikhail and Lev think she is lying. Meanwhile, Anya and Irina are in the mausoleum as well. While Anya gets ice cream for them, Irina is left alone. She sees Lev in the distance and runs to him. Security stops her from being near, and they tell Anya to watch her carefully. The security was so intimidating in their approach that it left the girls scared. At the military medical center, Irina is being examined while she contemplates how she lied to Lev about going to the design bureau. She knows that once the manned flight is over, the nation will no longer need her. Meanwhile, Supreme Leader Fyodor is looking at Mikhail and Lev's files to decide who will go to space. Ludmila brings up the topic of Irina and why she should be kept alive. The next day, Lev is confirmed to be the one picked for the flight. Mikhail protests, saying he is better than Lev in every field. Victor's personal opinion is that Lev has what it takes to make people smile and carry their dreams with him. At the medical center, Irina is in her room, imagining Lev as she looks up to the sky. Anya comes into her room, but for a moment, Irina thought she was Lev. Anya tells Irina it is time to go. Salva reminds Lev and Mikhail about the protocols of the flight. While they get over what needs to be done, Salva experiences pain in his chest, which makes the candidates worried for him. On their bus ride on their way to the space shuttle, Lev and Mikhail are already wearing their spacesuits. Lev suddenly wants the bus to stop, worrying the others. However, he just wants to pee, making the others laugh. After Lev is done peeing, Mikhail congratulates Lev for being the one who will go to space. They shake each other's hands, and Mikhail asks that Lev take his dream out there with him too. Before Lev boards his ship, he asks Salva to take care of Irina at the design bureau. He is shocked to know that Salva doesn't know what he is talking about. He realizes that Irina lied to him about going to the design bureau. Lev gets a perfect rocket launch, to the cheers of the military personnel. At the Earth's orbit, Lev describes the view as if the Earth is wrapped in a big blue veil, the same way Irina described it. Lev reports to the radio to celebrate the achievement with Kolodets. On Earth, the citizens of Zernitra hear the news about Lev's successful space mission. From her room, Irina peeks out her window. Despite the sun being too bright for her to see clearly, she can see that there are crowds of people in the streets and wonders what is happening. Anya goes into her room to tell her that the space flight is finally happening. Irina immediately goes out of her room and runs to the rooftop. The radio is being heard throughout the country, so Irina hears the newscaster say that Lev described the Earth as being wrapped in a blue veil. Lev even describes the stars as chervil flowers, the way Irina described them to Lev. Arriving at the rooftop, Irina opens the door, blinding her vision with the brightness of the morning sun. Despite being overwhelmed by the sun's brightness and shade, Irina forces her way out as she hears all the people chanting Lev's name. Finally, the new anchor states that Lev said he wants to celebrate the achievement with Kolodets. This reminds Irina of his date with Lev when they ate Kolodets. She cannot help but smile while teary-eyed. Anya rushes to Irina to cover her with a blanket. They both realize that the word Kolodet is Lev's personal message for Irina. Anya comforts Irina, saying that despite the world not knowing about her, she and Lev do. The girls hug each other and cry. Lev lands without problems. Lev reads the newspaper and is frustrated that the world thinks he is the first cosmonaut. At the celebration part, the food is served with Kolodets. As the press takes pictures of him, Lev sees Salva in the back. Lev and Salva talk privately, and Salva congratulates him on the successful trip, as well as his promotion to the rank of major. Lev shares his frustration that Irina is not mentioned in the papers. Seeing Lev worried about Irina, Salva tells him he will do everything to make sure she is alright. Lev is tasked with making the perfect speech for when he faces the citizens about his flight. Ludmila keeps destroying his drafts, saying none of his speeches are good enough. She notices that Lev is distracted, thinking about Irina. Ludmila tells him she will be disposed of, and that Lev needs to forget about her. She says that he will be known in history as the first cosmonaut. As she said before, Lev needs to be a revolutionary leader for the country. Meanwhile, higher-ups who want to terminate Irina make their intentions known to Supreme Leader Fyodor. Ludmila talks to Fyodor over the phone, saying that preparations for tomorrow's event are ready. Fyodor says it will be a momentous occasion that will be remembered. As he says this, a file on Irina is on his desk. Nearly 200,000 people gathered to see the world's first cosmonaut. It will mark the first time the Republic of Zernitra makes a simultaneous live broadcast around the world. The world watches as Lev arrives in Sangrad. Meanwhile, at the medical center, Anya gave the guard a sedative, so she and Irina are safe to go out. At the airport, the crowd cheers as Lev shakes hands with important officials. Lev's parents are at the event, and the country sees Lev hug and reunite with them. At the medical center, Irina and Anya manage to escape. Irina wears a red hoodie to protect herself from the sun. Elsewhere, the conspirators behind Irina's termination are getting ready with their plans. As Lev and his parents walk with the crowd surrounding them, the parents advise their son to look strongly forward as the world's first cosmonaut. Meanwhile, Irina and Anya are running in the streets. Irina is so tired due to the sun. Lev has arrived in Sangrad Square, where he will make his speech to the nation. Despite being weak, Irina and Anya successfully made it to the event. Lev speaks a speech worthy of being heard across the world. He speaks about Supreme Leader Fyodor and tells the world he was the first to congratulate him after landing in space. This makes Irina frustrated since she wanted to be the first to congratulate Lev. Amid the speech, Irina wants to leave in sadness. Suddenly, Lev takes a long pause in his speech, which makes the crowd murmur. After the pause, Lev tells the crowd about the vampire Irina being the true first cosmonaut. The entire world is shocked, including vampires listening to the radio. Lev continues talking about Irina's achievements and how her experience led to improvements to his rocket once it was his turn to go to space. He further tells the crowd that vampires are not a cursed species like he and they heard, but a person. Irina is so touched by Lev's words that she rushes to the platform with no regard for the consequences. As she runs, Lev goes on about Irina's hobbies and favorite foods. The way she conquered her fear of heights and her excitement about seeing her first movie, he asks the people to honor her sacrifices. Irina is almost caught by security, but Anya helps her escape. Lev ends his speech by saying he is the second cosmonaut. He then sees Irina from a distance and shouts at her to meet him by the stairs. As they met each other, Lev immediately covered her with his jacket, and they hug each other. The duo returns to the platform, and Lev introduces Irina to the world, building an expression of anger in the crowd. Lev tells Irina that he remembers her about to say something back in the snow when they were together. He tells her it is now her chance to tell the world what she should have said then. Irina approaches the microphone and introduces herself. Despite the crowd being unwelcoming to her, Irina ignores their angry words. Irina makes a speech about wanting to go to the space before human because she hates them. She tells them that her opinion of humans has changed since she met Lev, and now her dream is to go to the moon with him. After her speech, the crowd changed their anger to silence. The high officials and the crowds then started to clap. Supreme Leader Fyodor takes over the microphone. He apologizes to the crowd, saying that due to issues with the live broadcast, Irina was forced to arrive late. He blames the group called the Delivery Crew for the issue since they are the conspirators who wanted to eliminate Irina. He goes on to say that discrimination against vampires should be put in the past. Fyodor says their country is a progressive one that will also make vampires' dreams come true. After the event, Lev and Irina go to meet with Ludmila. Ludmila reveals that they have anticipated the possibility that Lev will say something about Irina. In light of that possibility, they have already prepared a statement for the Supreme Leader. If Lev had not said anything, the nation would not have criticized the delivery crew. Ludmila continues to reveal that the Supreme Leader issued a threat to the delivery crew that if they tried anything on Irina, he would destroy the rocket. To Ludmila, Lev became the revolutionary leader she wanted him to be. Lev and Irina look at the moon together at night. They talk about making their dream of going to the moon possible. Lev mentions that it will be possible if everyone in the world works together to make it possible. He goes on and says that the best part about space is that there are no borders. He believes that one day humans and vampires will live together in harmony, even in space. Irina and Lev both agree that what they have done will be a step toward a good future. They hold the moonstone together and declare that they will be going to their ideal future.